Welcome, everyone. I think everyone here has been here before, but just in case anyone is seeing this for the first time, this is the weekly Wednesday Night Miracles course. I'm the creator of it. I'm also the author of a couple of books about miracles. Holding a Butterfly is the first one, and The Breakthrough Point is the second one. And this course is a year-long course that works with a circular curriculum in that it has no beginning and no end. You actually can jump in really any time, and that will be a starting place for you. Every session is designed to be a complete experience, so you don't feel like you're just coming in the middle if you drop in on occasion. And at the same time, every session builds upon the last. So there is a progression, and you'll see much more of a result from this course. If you attend regularly, you'll get more the whole of the experience. And every week just gives a different slant of personal and spiritual growth, all designed to help us live miraculously, not just to create an isolated result, but to just start to see life become more in alignment with our highest good and our joy and our higher purpose and, the sweetness of life in its many different forms. And we also work with a seasonal focus. So the spiritual metaphors and exercises get set into the context of the seasons, which I use as a template for human growth and the creative process. And we just finished a whole month of working with the theme of prosperity, because in the summer, that's, in many places in the world, the Northern Hemisphere at least, it's when nature is just producing and producing and producing very abundantly. So we work with themes of opening to the abundance of our own lives. In particular, last month, we focused on money. And now that we're just getting well into the summer season, we're getting to that point where we can start to see daylight subsiding every day. And, while the ebbing of light reminds us that fall is coming, August is still a pretty warm month. Most parts of the world. And in a lot of places, this month is really a time of fulfillment. Gardens are producing, all their burgeoning crops, and flowers are everywhere. And, well, especially where I was, when I wrote this course in Minnesota, Florida, I'm experiencing a whole different kettle of fish around seasons. But in the sort of stereotypic sense of the seasons, this time of year is the time when, soon it's going to be gone. And I forgot to ask you all to mute. I will help with that a bit. But if you notice that you're unmuted, if you'll just do that for me. Yeah, I think I got everybody. You can always unmute when you want to share. But, even though it's going to be gone, soon, right now, nature is a feast. And at that point, when the darkening and the cooler season of fall is close and the heat of summer is still so present, more than any other season, this late summer month urges us to appreciate the moment, to be rather than to strive, and to live in the fullness of what is and to be grateful, which is what our emphasis is going to be this month. I've always experienced in this August time of year, I'll see what it's like in Florida. I know it's going to be really different. But where I come from, I always experienced a kind of stillness this time of year, where that expansive growth that started in the spring and just continued through the summer has spread outward nearly to its limit. And in August, everything just seems to stop for a moment as energy that's been set all in one direction for nearly half a year approaches a turning point with the turning of light. And in the creative process, that point is akin to the end stage of a project, right before that empty letdown that precedes the beginning of a next project. And by contrast, the stillness of late winter, 6 months from now, is a time of living empty rather than living full. That living empty time in winter is that time that's just pregnant with possibility right before everything bursts into new growth in the spring. And August, as I was saying, is the opposite. It's that time for living full right before it all ends. Now, and in fact, in the fall, we start to look at the necessity to, in order to really achieve spiritual transcendence in the winter, to start letting go of our attachment to physicality. But right now, it's all about that celebration of the physical beauty and abundance of life. Now, Chinese medicine relates this time of year to grounding and digesting. So it's not enough to work hard and produce a successful literal and metaphorical crop. For health and well-being, we also need the capacity to be present in the moment, in touch with the earth around us, and able to take in and digest the fruits of our labor. In other words, we need to be willing to receive. And receiving is a key, yet often overlooked aspect of empowerment. It's easy to become so fixed on the goal and the process of achieving that we forget to be receptive. We may even unconsciously deflect what we most want without realizing it. And if you often find yourself feeling burned out, maybe that you're doing too much alone, that your efforts are greater than the rewards, and that you're somehow missing out on the joy of life, you might be forgetting to receive. And I think in a lot of ways, it's an easy thing to forget. Our culture, in many ways, is very goal-oriented and consequently future-oriented. So many of us just have this tendency ingrained to some extent. We get to thinking that our happiness depends upon achieving certain external outcomes, such as a successful career, money, the perfect relationship, perfect health, a nice house, whatever it is. And then we postpone our happiness and we do whatever it takes to achieve our goals, telling ourselves that we'll get our reward later. We'll be happy when we get whatever it is we're striving toward. And while we may succeed in getting the external things we aim for, we may never receive the experience of happiness that we're truly hoping for. And by the time we reach one goal, we might have already formulated the next one. And we may skip right over the joy of having arrived just because we're so focused on how far we still have to go. That carrot on the stick is always out there, like, oh, yeah. And receiving isn't simply about accepting what we want when we want it on our own terms. I've often seen people think they have no problem with receiving. It's just that what they want hasn't shown up yet. And these folks are often holding out for the big prizes they've set their sights on while deflecting dozens of small gifts every day. And as I've said here before, from time to time, God will not give us more than we can stand to receive. So until we can stand to receive the small gifts that come our way, we're just not going to be burdened with the bigger ones. So if you're feeling like life's big gifts are eluding you, well, ask yourself then, say, when you get a compliment, do you appreciate it and say, well, thank you? Or do you look away and make a joke and say something self deprecating, like do everything you can to deflect it? When you see, a quarter in the street, do you pick it up and feel richer and say, thank you, universe? Or do you pass it by just wishing it were a $20 bill, like, not worth bending over for. My knees hurt. You know, if someone offers to buy you lunch, do you graciously receive it or do you automatically refuse it? Or do you maybe accept it but feel uncomfortably indebted, like, okay, how am I going to pay this back? In fact, when you receive presents of any kind, do you enjoy them? Or are you hard to please? Or is your mind busy with thoughts of what you'll have to give back in reciprocation? Maybe so much so that you don't really actually take pleasure in the receiving. And when someone offers to help you, do you gratefully receive it or do you insist that you can manage alone? Or do you assume that you can manage alone more easily than with help? A lot of us think that. Oh, it's more work than it's worth to have somebody help me. I'll just do it myself. Well, maybe that's a way of just shutting down to what might be available that you can use. And of course, when somebody loves you, do you feel blessed by it? And do you see it as a precious gift, or does it feel kind of entangling? Do you feel vulnerable? Do you retreat in fear? Do you find maybe the love of only a very specific few to be valuable and fail to appreciate the many others who might care for you or would be willing to care for you if you hadn't made them invisible, perhaps? Now, if you're starting to recognize yourself in some of these signs of poor receiving, well, you're not alone. In fact, whenever I've polled groups of people on the subject, and I've done this with some large groups on multiple occasions, I'm struck by how common a problem it is. In fact, in one of my larger groups, I once held a brainstorming session when I asked people to identify all the reasons they could think of for why they felt discomfort with receiving, both in the personal sense of receiving from other people, but also in a broader sense of just receiving their highest good from life. And we just wrote everything down. I had somebody describing on a great big board, everything that people shared. And and some themes came up. And I just boiled it all down to themes and subcategories. So I'm going to go through them. And if anything really, oh, that's me. If you really feel like, oh, that one really nailed me, anything that feels familiar, just make a note, jot it down for yourself, anything that feels familiar. And as I say, always have pen and paper handy for these. Now, the first big theme was guilt. It's the I don't deserve it theme. And some of the subcategories here include I'm not good enough. There's only so much of anything good to go around, so it's not fair for me to get more than my share. No one deserves a free ride. I need to work hard for what I get. Another theme, too many strings attached. Subcategories such as receiving creates unwanted obligations to give back. The more I receive, the more people expect from me. I feel manipulated when I receive people's gifts. Another big theme, feeling separate. Subcategories, will people still love me if I'm happy, successful, or prosperous, or powerful, or have more than they do? Will I still get attention or support or love if I don't absolutely need it? I just maybe want it. Is it right to just want, you know, goodies? Rich people, another subcategory of feeling separate. Rich people or powerful people or successful people are in some way bad, nasty, dirty. I don't want to be like them. So, another theme is vulnerability in relation to others. Subcategories like receiving from others makes me feel needy and weak. If I become reliant on someone giving to me, they have power to hurt me. I'm the only person I can trust. Always being the giver allows me to feel connected without feeling vulnerable. If I do all the giving, I stay in a one up position of control where they owe me. Another big theme, no faith in others. Subcategories like no one can take care of me as well as I can, or letting other people help me just makes more work for me, or I can't trust people to do as good a job as I can do. Another theme, fear of the unknown. Subcategories, what if I get what I want and I'm still not happy? Or what if I get everything I want, am blissfully happy, then lose it? That would be way more devastating than never having it to begin with. Or a fear of failure. What if I get the opportunity I've always wanted and blow it? Dreaming of what could be might be better than getting a chance and failing. Or it's too upsetting to our sense of what's real. Receiving something better than we believe is possible can just be too mind boggling to accept. And I know that one sounds weird, but I've actually even in other lessons given some examples of people having exactly that reaction to things and shutting down good things that happen. That can be a thing because it's safer to hold on to the security of reality as we know it than to change our whole reality paradigm. Another theme, loss of special identity. In other words, receiving would require giving up an identity that we're attached to. Subheadings here include I'm a struggling artist, activist, survivor, victim, etc., fill in the blank. Or it's part of what makes me special, or what makes me part of a special group. Another theme is sheer lack of vision. Subcategories include things like we're conditioned by life experience to disbelieve that what we want exists. Or we're conditioned to avoid wanting too much or even imagining having what we want. Why dream about what we can't have? So, see if any of those um, resonate with you, might reflect some of your ways of deflecting all the good God might have for you. And here's just a few questions. Ask yourself this: how are you at giving and receiving? How are you? Do you experience yourself as giving more than you receive, or receiving more than you give? Or do they seem relatively imbalanced? Or do you feel outside the flow of giving and receiving, where you're not doing much of either? You're just kind of outside of the stream. Um, and in the areas where you've identified some discomfort around receiving, what are the reasons for your resistance? Now, all of those things that just went through, that whole list, it's all in the written materials. So if you want to go back and study that a little more and just do a little soul searching around it, I really encourage you to do that. Um, Giving, even though we're looking at giving and receiving separately, the bigger truth is that they can't really be separated from each other any more than inhaling and exhaling can be. And just as the essence of true giving is unconditional love, we've talked about that in other sessions here, so is unconditional love the essence of receiving. I mean, it's all about love. Just as inhaling and exhaling flow together as breath, giving and receiving flow together as joining in love. And that means if we're not very good at receiving, we're just not really all that good at giving either. We may go through the motions, even if we've always thought of ourselves as generous and giving more than our share. When we give without receiving, essentially what we're doing is denying the opportunity to join in love. I mean, think how disappointing it is to really, from your heart, give to someone who doesn't really appreciate and receive the gift. It just doesn't feel all that great. And when we don't receive, we may be sharing our generosity, but we're withholding that greater gift of true connection. And if our giving doesn't create joining in love, then at the highest, truest level, it's not a true gift. We may be giving to feel good about ourselves. We may be giving to get something back. We may be giving as a way of connecting without really connecting more in that one up, one down situation. It might be a way that we exercise some kind of control over another person. But it's not really a true joining in love when we give without receiving. Well, here's a question that I hear a lot when I talk about receiving. What if we're offered gifts that we just don't want? How can we be appreciative of gifts that really aren't anything we want? Um, you know, Maybe you're on the receiving end of some awful secret Santa thing you do with your extended family or, with coworkers where the gift reflects nothing of your tastes and was given kind of dutifully rather than joyfully. And there's still a lot that can be done to transform even this experience into a gift. Because really, everything we attract in life reflects something about our beliefs and expectations. We give a lot of attention to just this principle in other lessons here. If you look at everything that's coming at you in life, you can get a really interesting picture of just the vibration you're putting out to the world, the expectations you have of life. Um, and a gift that doesn't suit us or have much feeling behind it can actually give us the gift of a reflection. It can give us a bit of self-knowledge. It may be showing that on some level we don't feel deserving of more, or that we don't have a lot of trust in other people to be able to please us, or maybe that we don't let others know us well enough to give to us in a meaningful way. It might be giving us all kinds of little clues about what we're putting out there to the world. And, the other side of that is that whatever we choose to make of whatever does show up in life has a big impact on what we attract next. And the disappointment or dismissal we give to an unappreciated gift is really only going to draw more of the same back to us. Because it's always our choice to experience joy and gratitude or disappointment. I mean, I think I may have shared with the anecdote with Peace Pilgrim when I was talking about her some weeks back. I can't remember if this came up. When she actually was imprisoned for vagrancy. Peace Pilgrim was that lovely older woman who just walked around the country talking to people about peace, owning nothing, just relying on the generosity of others. She never asked for anything. She just accepted uh, food when it was offered, shelter when it was offered, didn't take money, nothing like that. And she was actually imprisoned for vagrancy. And for her, it was a pure blessing. Everything about it was a blessing because of the young woman she met in jail, of the incredible experience she had in connecting with this young woman. It's all perfect. The officers who took her fingerprints were just so lovely. you know. Wait, I have some extreme example, but it shows we always have a choice on what to make of our life experiences. And we can choose to experience joy or we can choose to experience disappointment. So, why choose disappointment when joy feels a whole lot better and attracts more joyful experiences to us? In that so many people know me as a teacher, and I've just been involved in teaching, big groups for my whole life. There have been times, maybe around a birthday or a holiday. I remember one birthday in particular. I had a weekly group of about 40 people, and 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 it was my birthday on group night, and they just organized this lovely little birthday party for me. Somebody brought a cake, and I found myself on the receiving end of a mountain of these little gifts given by these just lovely, kind-hearted folks, many of whom didn't know me very well. And I had some gifts that were just exactly me, and I loved them, really enjoyed them. Others were very nice things I had absolutely no use for, and some were just really not me at all. And at times, especially then, I just felt very overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of stuff that I had just become the owner of. But in spite of the overload, I just loved the outpouring. It had so much love behind it. And I've had that was like the biggest, but there have been smaller little variations on that theme. And what I've found is that I just give attention to each gift and take it in, and then I just cart it all home and I put it in my gifts to give area. Then I have a lot of fun giving it away. Um, and just because I pass on some of the wealth does not mean I failed to receive or enjoy it. I don't think there's anything at all wrong with regifting if we really take in the gift, receive the love, and then have fun just finding the person who's going to love it. That kind of regifting is really different from just, passing on the 12-year-old fruitcake to the next, um, unwilling recipient. It's a totally different way of regifting. And there are just a lot of ways to take joy in a gift, that may not be quite what we'd pick for ourselves. Okay, so what if a gift comes, you know, how it is with unspoken strings attached, unspoken expectations, sticky, sticky strings. What do we do then? And while there are times we may decide not to accept a gift, there's never really a time we need to withhold our gratitude. In fact, if we begin to accept conditional gifts, the ones given with strings attached, um, there's a way we can start. Oh, Stephanie, I'll share that at the end. You're asking for where the handouts are. I'll share that with everybody at the end. There's a code I'll give out, and I'll explain how to get them. So if we begin to accept conditional gifts by receiving the gift and not the condition, then it becomes easier to extend appreciation. And this might seem really hard to wrap your mind around, how to accept a strings attached gift without all the sticky entanglements. Yet, I mean, the truth is that manipulation can't happen unless both parties agree to it. When one party stops, it really does change the whole dynamic. Um, and what usually happens when we do take in that conditional gift and we say yes to it, is that we receive it, we accept it with with a certain amount of resentment, maybe a lot, and we take it maybe because it's something we believe we need and might not find more freely given elsewhere. So we kind of feel worse about ourselves for accepting the gift from a weak or opportunistic place. And we also feel resentful toward the giver for using these gifts as a form of power over us. So consequently, these transactions, just leave us anything but grateful. And and on the other side, as the giver tries to buy what they want through their gifts and really just receives resentment and dutiful reciprocation, maybe in return, it creates this downward spiraling dynamic where no one is receiving anything worth having. Typically, this situation finally ends when the giver feels taken advantage of and stops giving, or the receiver decides the price is just too high and stops receiving. Now, here's a way to just come at that in a completely different way, and a way that truly does change the interaction. And it's one that keeps the flow of joining open instead of stopping it. And it's very simple. It's to receive the gift as though it were given unconditionally. I mean, maybe sure you know it isn't, but receive it deep into your heart as if it is, and offer back the most sincere. I mean, it has to be real. It has to be authentic, heartfelt gratitude, and nothing else. Heartfelt, loving gratitude. Now, this approach has to begin with a change of attitude on the receiver's part, obviously. Um, you have to recognize that sincere, loving appreciation is a meaningful gift. And when we can offer that, really no other reciprocation is needed. Now, of course, it also requires stepping back from probably a history, whatever baggage is connected to that gift, maybe a long history of manipulation and resentment, to find a fresh perspective and a willingness to feel love instead of guilt or obligation. Now, the results of the shift, if you can really do it, I know sometimes we just can't pull it off. The the baggage runs too deep. But if we can, the shifts can be truly profound. The giver may see that their attempt to manipulate isn't going to work and will just stop giving. So boom, it ends that. On the other hand, the experience of receiving love instead of resentful obligation can be such an unexpected gift that it can completely transform the relationship. Because unconditional love in the form of appreciation is transformative. It really is. And it can change things. It can open a flow of love, of pleasant surprises, and unconditional giving on both sides. And handling conditional gifts this way, it really can clear up that sticky dilemma of whether to receive a gift that has strings attached or not. If you can just go into that place of deep, unconditional appreciation where you just are just, thank you. This means so much to me. Thank you. So, where it's real. Um, because truly, the essence of giving and receiving is the joining in love it creates between the giver and the receiver. And here's the key. If you can receive a gift and feel wholehearted gratitude and love, then receive it. If the receiving leaves you feeling less joined in love, then don't receive it. It's that simple. If the receiving helps you to feel more love, receive it. If it leaves you feeling less love, then don't. Boom. Kind of easy peasy when you make it that simple. And sometimes we give as a way of showing another person what we want to receive. As in, if I give enough of this, eventually they'll catch on and reciprocate. Now, in a really broad generalization that just doesn't fit every individual, so I prefaced with this, very general, women tend to be especially prone to this style of giving. If I give enough of this, eventually they'll catch on and reciprocate. Women, tend to lean that way. And sometimes this conditional reciprocal flow works really well, as with other women who are programmed the same way. Now, men, on the other hand, again, in a very, very broad understanding, we can't paint a whole gender with one brushstroke. In a very general way, lean toward a different style of giving, where they may give less, but when they do, it's with less expectation of reciprocation. It's more unconditional. So consequently, when they receive a gift, they don't feel a pressure to reciprocate in the way that's more natural to women. This leads to some misunderstandings, and the men are from Mars, women are from Venus, kind of stuff. Some of that is real. It's interesting to read some of the literature out there on just gender differences, because some of it's very real, and what we interpret as insensitivity and selfishness is really just a whole different reality paradigm. Oh, and here's kind of a note to men. If you want to figure out what the woman in your life wants from you, you might want to just look at what she is doing for you. Sometimes she's telling you that way. But this, even though this can lean in gender lines, it isn't restricted to opposite gender interactions at all. Regardless of your gender, if you're a big giver and feel that you give more than you receive back, the recipient may be sensing some unspoken expectations from you. That your gift may actually feel more like a request than an actual gift. And, that's why it's no wonder if you're giving that way that what you get back in return might look more like backing off and giving less, a lack of appreciation, or maybe even someone just outright taking advantage of you. Now you can turn this around by giving less of your time and energy and service or material things, and just giving more of your appreciation, because the lesson this week is that heartfelt appreciation is a gift. Truly receiving deep down to our core and appreciating it, that is a gift. Now, in a relationship, if there's nothing to appreciate, then you may be giving to the relationship that you wish you had rather than to the one that is, and it may be time to step away from it. But a way to kind of kickstart, to kind of rejuvenate a long-term relationship is to start looking at your spouse, your partner, with fresh eyes, and just starting to appreciate the little things they do for you. You might think that taking out the garbage is that person's job. They might think of it as love. So to start really actually recognizing, I just appreciate that. I thank you so much. it can just really open things, open doors of new forms of communication, of love flowing, of gift flowing that you didn't think were possible in your relationship. Now, assuming that there are good things keeping you in relationship with another person, as I'm saying, giving more attention to appreciating what you're receiving than you give to resenting what you're not it can be magic, truly magic. And over the next week, I want to suggest that you give some thought to the balance of giving and receiving in your life. If you feel that you receive more than you give, this week, see how many ways you can find to give thanks for all the blessings coming to you. If you feel that you give more than you receive, well, look for ways to give as much to yourself as you give to other people. Also, pay attention to ways in which you refuse opportunities to receive, and see if you can say yes more often to gifts coming to you. If you tend to keep yourself out of the flow of giving and receiving altogether, then do all of the above as abundantly as you can. Just see how you can just get back into the game of life. So our last, we're going to do some experiential work, and it's going to be a miracle experiment, which I'll talk about and I'll guide you through. Because every month we're doing a slightly different theme. So it makes sense to catch up, starting from the beginning of a month. It doesn't really make sense to go back more than a month. It really makes more sense to just keep going forward till next year. Because we'll be here. I'll be here again next year. So it's always fine. As you know, I do this on a donation basis to benefit the spiritual centers that sent you here. So even if you're not attending live, if you're reviewing a class that you missed, I do ask that you check in with your inner guidance and let it tell you what the right offering to give. I think it's very important, well, A, to support our spiritual centers, but B, to give to our spiritual work here. Because as we talked about last week, that just gifting of money is actually a way of, I think, bringing the spiritual work out of the spiritual realm into the physical realm. That's how we tell ourselves at a subconscious level that this is real, this has value to me. And so our subconscious creative mind sets about getting our money's worth by producing, lovely outcomes and effects and miracles. So I always think the money part is really important. Don't skimp on that. Okay, I know it's getting late, so I want to go into our meditation. Just FYI, I aim for an hour with these sessions. Sometimes they last a little bit more. So think about this as, an hour and 15-minute session, and a lot of times we'll end sooner. So this is the part where we are actually going to do some miracle making, and this is going to be a miracle experiment. I've talked about what I mean by a miracle experiment before, but just a very quick recap. It's something I first introduced in my book, Holding a Butterfly, and it's simply an intention to gather a large body of people in intention, in loving intention, on behalf of one another. In my book, I started it as imagine joining with every other reader in loving intention. And I've expanded that over the years to include people in my miracle experiment workshops, who participate via video, all kinds of different ways. And it's simply an intention to gather in love with many other people outside of time and space to generate energy that will create miracles for all of us. And in my first book, Holding a Butterfly, I talk a lot about the science that makes this seem not totally crazy. There's actually quite a bit of it. I've talked about some of that here, so I'm not going to go deeply into it. Both of my books go into the science of the metaphysics. Holding a butterfly, and then the breakthrough point kind of expands from there. But the focus on this experiment is to rewire us to become more open to receive. So just get comfortable in your place and close your eyes and just quiet your thoughts with some deep, full breath. And just breathe. Relax. And just begin to let your whole sense of identification shift from the density and the limitation of matter to the bright, clear, beautiful energy that is your true essence. And as you make this shift in perception, you leave behind all the limitations of density and matter. And you can actually start to see the cells of your physical body now lighting up and becoming radiant with this energy. All the particles that make up your body are becoming lighter. The molecules, the atoms, the subatomic particles are spreading out and vibrating in beautiful light. And as you leave the density of matter behind, you enter a realm of limitless possibilities where time and space have no bearing. So see the bright energy of everyone in this class joining together in consciousness. And even bigger, see us all now joined by the thousands of people who have ever participated in one of these miracle experiments, either through my book or through workshops or just radio interviews, all kinds of different people out there who have agreed to be part of this network of loving consciousness, who have, in a sense, agreed to be on each other's team, raising us all up to the place where miracles happen easily. And because time is illusionary, we can join with all of those who will in the future and those who have in the past, be part of a miracle experiment like this. Just simply because we all intend that it's so, because we're all imaginative enough to conceive it. That's all it takes. Consciousness is that powerful. So we're all vibrating together now in joined consciousness beyond the illusionary limits of space and time, each of us bringing only higher love to the whole. You might imagine us all meeting in some magnificent sacred arena in the spiritual realm, or you might imagine us forming a wave-like circle of energy or a network of light. And to see this joining, however you imagine it, as something just infinitely beautiful, as sacred, as awe-inspiring, and just filled with the potent energy of love, that energy that is all that is. And as a group, we form such a powerful network for healing to take place and for miracles to happen. Let's really recognize how much more powerful we are when we come together this way. Our joined intentions quicken our growth and awaken our intuition and heighten our magnetism for our highest good. So whatever has seemed difficult in the past can now come more easily. Just feel the light and the energy of our network building, building, getting stronger. And now imagine that energy of the universe. Physicists might call it the 0-point field. Mystics might call it the light or divine love. Spiritual paths might call it God, however you wish to name it. You might think of it as the limitless source. Picture it as a field that exists all around you and within you, an ever-present, invisible sea of light that contains unlimited potential. And what's more, it's inherently intelligent and kind. It's not anything cold or neutral. It's purely benevolent. Feel the very air around you to be alive and filled with love. And it's holding you now safe and secure in the way a loving parent might hold the most precious child. And you relax just completely and softly into this loving energy, just like a small child, filled with absolute trust, knowing your absolute safety. And now you've tapped God energy, and this energy is having a very real effect on you, body and mind. If you're in need of a healing of any kind, this will give you a boost. But don't try to focus on anything so much as just be the tiny child, allowing yourself to completely relax in loving arms. And place your hand on your own heart and just feel it there, very warm and comforting. Breathe. And take in the feeling of this touch more deeply than you ordinarily would. Just feel that warmth. Reassure yourself through this touch, as God would, that you deserve to receive love and joy and all forms of God's bounty and grace. And now, as you hold your own heart, imagine a comforting, loving hand on your back over the area of your heart, touching you. And imagine that a kind, loving soul from this whole network of miracle experiment participants has come to you in service to channel universal love to you. You might even feel more than one hand as multiple souls come to you as helper angels right now. And you don't even need to believe that this is real. See if you can just imagine it and make it real in your mind's eye. Make it so real that you can feel that warm, loving touch on your back. Really, we're far more connected to each other than we consciously know. Don't even worry about believing it. Just imagine. And imagine that the love you're receiving now is completely unconditional. There's nothing you need to do to earn it or deserve it. Feel the presence of this touch, softening and comforting and awakening your heart center. And allow yourself to be thoroughly washed in love. Love washing away anything you no longer need, any dis-ease of body and mind, and most especially washing away, melting away, dissolving away the crust that's grown around your heart Any one of us who's made it into adulthood has some bit of that. That crust that inhibits our ability to receive and take joy in life. Let it all just be washed away in this flood of healing love. And as you're receiving, you might even let a sound out with your breath, just making an sound. And just imagine everything that holds you back, that keeps you small, that creates dis-ease, is leaving with each breath. And just completely surrender to the sensations in your body. Don't think, just feel, be present. Feel yourself start to vibrate in the unlimited way of light and energy and love. The very cells of your physical body becoming more radiant and bright. And know that repatterning is taking place at the deepest level of your being, awakening you to love, opening you to receive, and making you magnetic to your highest good on every level. You don't need to believe any of this. Just be present in your body. Feel it, imagine it, see it, and just allow. Allow love to work miracles. And don't be concerned if you find it difficult to feel or believe that there's anything here for you to receive. Again, you don't need to believe. Much of what happens in this kind of work takes place outside of our conscious awareness. Sometimes trying to believe is like climbing Mount Everest. So don't even try. Just imagine, just feel, just relax. All you need to do is lightly hold the thought that a shift is happening to make you more magnetic to your highest good. Now, if this experience, if you're really feeling it, if it's leaving you feeling full and overflowing, remember that the best way to keep a spiritual gift is to pass it on. So imagine that a soul from this vast miracle experiment network of participants is now present before you with their back turned to you. And imagine placing your hand over their heart and sharing the love that's flowing through you. You don't need to know who it is. You don't need to ever know who it is. Just imagine a soul, see their light, imagine that they somehow can use exactly what you're radiating right now. And realize that your directed love is an invisible yet very, very real force. Imagine that it's quietly helping to make life good for someone. Again, someone you'll never meet. Just feel the magnitude of that. Imagine that you are a miracle maker for someone, helping to create shifts in their lives, just with your intention to do so, with your imagination, with your heart open and flowing love. And now just let go of giving and receiving and simply relax into the goodness of life, the sweetness of life. Let this feeling reach a peak of intensity and just send it out as though you are a fountain just flowing to all those others who have, who are, and who will intentionally be part of this miracle experiment. Just, there is no limit. We are unlimited. And along with this loving blessing that you're sending, also send your wholehearted gratitude for the loving care that you just received. Be grateful with your heart completely open. And now take a deep breath and bring yourself all the way back. And don't be surprised if you just start noticing more and more the good things in life. Just see what happens. You know, I usually take questions and comments and sharing at this point, but I think since we did that already, I think I'd like to just send you off in the silence. It's always good to get a nice drink of water after we do any kind of altered states work. And just keep it with you for a little bit. Just stay in the radiating. Take it with you into sleep time tonight. And let this all, this week be about opening to receive. See all the gifts that come to you and let them in. This whole month is going to be about living in the fullness of God, opening to the sweetness of life, all of that. And if you just came for the manifesting part and think you don't need this, this is the most important part. It's really important. If we're not going to let it in, why do all the law of attraction, manifesting, yada, yada? Receiving is fundamental to this work. So that's it for tonight. I always love to hear from you, so feel free. If you miss a week, if you want to get the code, just always write to me. It's lynn@lynnwoodland.com. You can always get to my email through my website. If I don't get back to you for days, as I think most of you know, I just moved in. It's kind of construction zone. Sometimes I just am busy with a paintbrush for a few days on end. I don't even look at my email. So I apologize in advance, but I always do love hearing from you. So until next week, I love you all. Love and blessings. See you next week. Namaste.